to present, yes, that he was able to present that it's only in the formal operational stage. Out of the 4 stages, from sensory motor to pre-operational to concrete operational and formal operational, it's only in the last stage, in the formal operational stage, where hypothetical, abstract, theoretical reasoning can be facilitated, where learners are at the age of 11 years old or older. So this means that philosophy or philosophizing cannot be done at early stages or levels of cognitive development. Okay. This is also comparable to the model of Plato. If we can recall, Dr. Abenis also presented the virtues education by Plato, where he presented the 3 level school, right? The first level school, second level school, and third level school. And just like the cognitive or the stages of cognitive development of Jean Piaget, uh, Plato identified the third level school as the stage of learning where philosophy or philosophizing can be done, where the aim of education there is dialectical training, and the virtue to be achieved is wisdom. Okay. So the models presented actually reflect the reality, in our education, where philosophy is absent in the basic education. So you can see that both in the stages of cognitive development theory of Jean Piaget and Plato's virtues education, where philosophy is being taught or being facilitated in the higher level of learning. So, in fact, it was mentioned during the lecture that it's only introduced in senior high school and college level. Okay, Dr. Abenis mentioned about the way we deliver philosophy through the pedagogy of fear, exclusivity, and elitism, arrogance, and repression. Okay, where teachers are the possessors of knowledge and the authority in setting the agenda for inquiry. So this is basically the very reason, right, why it is impossible to bring philosophy closer to learners, particularly to children. And educational success, as explained, must be learner-centered, where students determine the course of the investigation and teachers only facilitate. And success then is qualified by dialogue, when students are conversing, collaborating, and caring with one another while being critical. And this was explained further by Mom Regina Rafael. No? She discussed about the philosophy for children, thinking skill program that would help learners to become more thoughtful, more reflective, more considerate, and more reasonable individuals. Okay. And she also discussed the different approaches and practices in philosophy, right? The Lippmann method, the democratic philosophical method, the Socratic method, and the method of Jacques Levine. Okay. So engaging children and all learners in philosophical inquiries encourages them to question assumptions, reason logically, and grow deeper on arguments and navigate complexities of the world around them. So overall, the philosophy for children is a response to bring philosophy closer to children and to all learners, not only children. Thus, breaking the idea of philosophy is exclusive and elitist, and dismantling the pedagogy of arrogance. And tonight, we will have another interesting topic to be delivered to us by Dr. Dennis Apolega on philosophy, science, and education. Good evening, Dr. Dennis Apolega.
Oh, okay. That's. I guess I'll start by sharing my screen and so good evening, everyone. Actually, I have not a lot of slides, but hopefully there's going to be a lot of discussion since this is my first lesson with you. Although I actually constructed the module, the basis for it, which anyone can adapt, and hopefully we'll move forward for the next session also. And hopefully you learn some new things from old things actually. So I'll just share my screen. I'll stop my camera. I think it might make the bandwidth too much, but I'll share my screen. It's So I hope you could hear me. So my presentation for today, hopefully it's probably just going to be less than an hour, maybe 40 minutes, is philosophy, science, and education. Um, and it's one of the questions that I put in the module is how is philosophy relevant to science and education? And we will try to address this by doing some philosophy. And it might be something that might be strange for you, but actually from the very beginning, from our first lesson to our last lesson with Dr. Benes last time, we've already started to begin doing some philosophy. So that's why the question might be, what's happening with this one? The practical question you might ask yourself is, how will philosophy aid me as an educator? And it's very important to emphasize that even though we only have 6 lessons, and it's really designed, in fact, you could do it all online and even by yourself. In this age of content creation, before we move forward with the lesson itself for tonight, sometimes it's missed that there are things that you will only appreciate and learn through the passage of time. And in fact, with this presentation, I'd have to say that um, we will be revisiting things maybe that you did not know have something to do with philosophy, science, and education. So it's not science education. It's about philosophy, science, and education. And maybe you could say that that's why it became science education. And in fact, even people might say also mathematics education. But a lot of it really is a discussion with philosophers and scientists. So that's why if you look at my picture here, which is this is a free picture of the question from DC Comics. This might be overwrought, no, gas na. That it's going to be Einstein who's going to be the most influential, and you might not know that he's even influential now, even though you might not be familiar with a lot of what Einstein actually said, even though we're already in the 21st century and Einstein is 20th century. There's a lot of things there that he did that are still influential, even without the field of, even from not just the field of physics or science. Before Einstein, and specifically the special theory of relativity, many physicists followed Newton. Now, the thing is, I think there's a bunch of you. Can you raise your hands, maybe? Are there a bunch of you, science? I think integrated science also. Are there a bunch of you in the sciences? I think there's integrated science, right? Yeah, there are. But it's not just about the science people, it will come out, but it's actually something that we do in education, but it's actually something that we need to reflect on. When Einstein did the special theory of relativity, before that, because he was still a newbie, many physicists followed Newton. That is, ito yung para madali lang, to not define time, space, place, or motion as being well known to all. Which is sort of saying, what's wrong with this? Which is sort of saying, to not really define it. It's as if when physicists talk about time, space, place, or motion, it's either that it's already understood or it doesn't need to be defined further or discussed further. So that's why it's already a problem. Without even discussing Einstein. But the thing is, that's why I had to show this picture about the difference between Newton and Einstein. And this is not just physics, no? The way we look at the world, if we're going to say the way we look at reality, changed with Einstein. In terms of physics, there is something different that he actually adds there. No? But in terms of when he did the physics, there is a problem, especially when you think of yourself as an educator na, sir, hindi na ba kailangan i-define yung mga bagay na yun? No? Especially if it turns out Einstein was actually correct about the physics there, without even talking about the physics. But unfortunately, I might have to talk about it. But if you look at it from Newton's fixed space to Einstein's flexible space-time, if you're a physicist, sir, there's a really big difference there. But if you're going to talk about definitions, if a lot of physicists followed Newton, the idea was that there's really no need to define time, space, place, or motion insofar as it's being known to all. But the thing is, in the 20th century, aside from Einstein, there were things that happened wherein it's obvious that you cannot talk about the everyday definition of time, space, and place on motion and say it's the same as the same definition for what? For physics. We could look at this from a physicist's point of view. I'm not sure if there are people here or familiar. Is there anyone familiar with the special theory of relativity here? Well, it's already more than 100 years old. No, so the thing that happens with Einstein in special theory of relativity and physics, the reason why people had to come up with a way of talking about it is because physics now had to really account for light. No? That's what happened in the special theory of relativity. When you talk about the general theory of relativity, it's not just light anymore. Actually, you kind of see it already here. What do you think? There's a picture. The picture dun sa Einstein's flexible space-time. Can anyone guess? Aside from light, what do you think you need to account for? Did someone answer something? There's space. What's the curved space? Why do you think there's a curved space? What do you think that aside from light, you account for it? You account for gravity. That's right. So in fact, that's I don't know if you've seen oh no, I forgot the name of the movie by Christopher Nolan with Matthew McConaughey. It's shown there. We can look at it from physicist point of view. Special theory, light. General theory, gravity. Because before, they just take it for granted. No? They just take these terms for granted, and they wouldn't really look at it or reflect on these definitions. Yeah, that's right. Interstellar. No? Spoiler. There is something there that escapes gravity. That's the idea there. That's why it's general theory. It's the idea that all of the laws of physics applies everywhere for anyone. That's why when you talk about relativity, it's not just because it's relative, no? It's a macro theory. So you're subject to light and gravity. The special theory, it's because, sir, they found out what the speed of light actually is. Because before, you were just basically saying it's with, to refer again to movies. I don't know if you saw the second Thor, no, may pula-pula. Basically, they're saying yung pula-pula na yon, dun dumadaan yung light, no, which is another way of saying it's not science, no? Kasama ng mga multo, short of saying that, light. But Einstein, when he was doing the special theory of relativity, thankfully, Michelson and Morley came out, measured the speed of light, kaya na. This is the physicist point of view. But we can also look at it from an educator's point of view. The idea here is that there is a difference now, obviously. We could say that it's obvious because we're in the 21st century. There's a difference now with talking about, actually light is a wave, Is that new? Actually, there's a problem there, no? But that's the physics part. There's a importance now of language. There's an importance now about definitions. If you're going to say that, sir, pwede natin sabihin na everyday use of light, sir, wala kaming ilaw. Wala kaming light, hindi kami makita. There's no electricity. That's actually just what you mean. But what's important actually is that you come up with a definition that is actually something that is subject to a process. And in this case, it's actually a scientific process. But that's why this is very important to take note of. The reason why people had to come up with this notion of this kind of definition historically is because in physics, people like Einstein came out and it became a problem because it cannot be that what you refer to in the everyday sense is the same as what physicists are referring to in the scientific sense. Does that sound familiar when you start talking about definitions? Is anyone familiar with it? You supposedly do that. Where do you supposedly do that? Does anyone know? Saan nyo ginagawa yung mga definition? Wherein you're going to say to yourself, there's the day-to-day interaction, but when you say that, sir, ito, in fact, who's this? Charmaine?
Yes, Doc. When we do research, we usually use the operational and conceptual definition. It's tantamount to saying that people now accept that there are terms really which do not have the same meaning, particularly when they're used in different contexts or professions. Thank you.
So it is actually, that's right. So that's why this is useful in a very specific sense also for you. When you make your research.
Come on, let me see your book. Go get there. Your books.
Hello. So ito yung very specific muna before we go to the philosophy. When you talk about a thesis, when you talk about a research, this one is very important because a lot don't actually finish their thesis. When you talk about operational definitions. But that's why this is very important that you have to take note that, sir, bakit nagkaganon? Nagkaganon because of science in this case. Nagkaganon because specifically science in terms of people like Einstein in this case. No? And we're still using that. No? And the problem is, in fact, this one, the one I quoted here, Bridgman, when he did it, so some people are talking about in the chat room when they use it also in the classroom. When Bridgman did it, and he's a physicist, when he did it, he was actually doing it in the classroom. Because on the one hand, most students at that time were more familiar, of course, with the everyday use of things like time, space, place, or motion. But the problem was, no, in Filipino terms, nawindang sila when Einstein came out and basically what we would call operationalize it. But the thing is, it's very important. How did he operationalize it? Because it's something that you could make an experiment on. It's something you could make an experiment on. So, sir, it's something wherein before, if people talk about an event, if people talk about time, space, and all that, they never really thought of using light, but that's more for the physics people. They would just use a word for it. They might say, sir, it's metaphorical, sir, when I say light. But Morley, Michelson and Morley were able to measure the speed of light. And it changed things, but that's the physics part. But that's why we need to be clear here that that's the physics and science part. But by and large, when you make a thesis, especially when you come up with a definition of terms, sir, people keep on saying operationalize it. But that's why it's something that you need to really think about, especially in our last slide when we talk about education. there seems to be something that a context that might be missed in your research if it turns out that, sir, a lot of it really is owing to Bridgman. And Bridgman is also the teacher, I hope you're familiar with him. Bridgman is also the teacher of Oppenheimer. So this is actually a small group. And even though small group, very influential, because even when you do research now, it's operationalism that comes out. But remember, this ism came out from a problem or an issue. So that's why you have the mahinang Koreano. Oo, nahihina nga. Yan ang problema. We will go to the last slide in fact also. Which will reflect also the problem about the internet connection. That's why you have the operational definitions. But again, really, it came about because of results in physics, specifically physics. So it's something to think about. However, it's not just physics. No? Does anyone know what this is? No, probably not. No, but it's fine. But maybe some of the science people might know. Yeah, these are cells, and in fact, these are what? These are stem cells. Now, the reason why I put this here is because you might not know it, that philosophy actually just made a contribution to what? To science. Insofar as philosophy, I'm quoting Laplan here, philosophy has a long tradition of investigating properties. And the tools in use in this tradition have recently been applied to describe stemness. In other words, and a lot of people, they become impatient when philosophers do this. In other words, that's why I had to bring up Bridgman. He's a physicist. In a real sense, what he did there was a piece of philosophy, because on the one hand, you have everyday terms, but on the other hand, here are physicists like Einstein changing the way you look at those terms which are everyday. It's a kind of philosophy that he does because it's very important that you have to reflect on your thinking about the definitions. If it turns out na, sir, hindi siya talaga pang everyday lang. Much like if you talk about what does it mean to be a stem cell? And it seems very tedious. It seems very what? It seems very, bakit pa natin gagawin to? The property that defines stem cells. One of us has shown that the 4 different kinds of properties exist under the guise of stemness in current scientific knowledge. In other words, if you're going to talk about it in terms of Filipino, hinimay niya yung mga definition at possible definitions of stem cells. Oops, nawala. Depending on the type of tissue, stemness can be a categorical property. In other words, an intrinsic property of the stem cell, independent of its environment. So that's why it's good. Someone mentioned this thing about research, and that's precisely why research is important. The very practice of it, not necessarily, in fact, even the specific content of it. If you're going to say that, sir, I'm actually practicing that part, wherein it is a kind of philosophy that you're doing. A dispositional property, an intrinsic property of the stem cell that is controlled by the microenvironment. So you do stuff like this, in fact, in research, wherein I have to and then this one, a relational property, an extrinsic property that can be conferred to non-stem cells by the microenvironment, or a systemic property, a property that is maintained and controlled at the level of the entire cell population. If you look at it, it's basically looking at the levels of description of the stem cell. From you might say the very smallest level, to the macro level. That's one way of looking at it. The intrinsic one, in other words, the stem cell in itself, what it is, and the next one is dispositional property. The stem cell is controlled by the microenvironment, so the stem cell and its small environment, and the relational property, extrinsic property that can be conferred to non-stem cells by the microenvironment or a systemic property, which is the biggest one. Now, it sounds like, oh my God, bakit pa natin kailangan himayin at himayin yun? Well, the first thing is, if you're a philosopher, that's actually the tradition in philosophy there that maghihimay na maghihimay yan precisely because a lot of times, like when you say, already started talking about it in terms of physics, when someone says, let's say, someone is a good person. If I say that Charmaine is good, a philosopher can ask, what do you mean by good? And some people might say, oh my God, no, ba't na natin gagawin yan? Here, fortunately, is and that's why it's not just in physics, this one is in biology and medicine. This is actually something that you could apply. Stem cell and cancer biology researcher Hans Clevers notes that this philosophical analysis highlights important semantic and conceptual problems in oncology. In other words, if it's oncology, when you're talking about the treatment of cancer, and stem cell biology. He also suggests that this analysis is readily applicable to experimentation. Very important. So that's why when you talk about research in this way, and we talk about operationalizing in this way, the definitions, it's because when you operationalize, in this case, if it's from science, if it's from physics, if it's from biology, it means that it is actually readily applicable to experimentation. And that's why it's something that you need to think about when you start thinking about also education. Because you might ask yourself, there might be parts wherein assert that part of education might not be applicable to experimentation. But the other one is, there are parts of education wherein it's applicable to experimentation. In other words, if you could talk about it in terms of an intervention, but how come there's no research about it? Indeed, beyond conceptual clarification, in other words, hindi lang dahil gugulo lang yung mga philosophers, this philosophical work has real-world applications, as illustrated by the case of cancer stem cells in oncology. In other words, this is very important that what used to be something that might be found tedious when you're doing a philosophical discussion about what is good, what is the nature of justice, what is the nature of reality. That method, much like in science, the content of philosophy and the content of science, often if you're doing the content properly, the content is the method. Some people forget that even in science and even in mathematics, the content itself already shows you part of what the method is going to be. Especially for the educators here, who deal with both science and mathematics, or for those who actually try to do it, sometimes, sir, if I do the content really well, I'm already showing what methods will come out there. But in this case, the philosophical method of, you might say, sir, the nitty-gritty pangungulit ng philosophers, pwede pala, not just in physics, if you're going to say that Bridgman had to deal with Einstein, because that's a piece of philosophy of science. Because that he did not determine the definitions through an experiment. It's just that with the definitions, now you could try and do the experiment. That's why when you talk about research, it's something really to think about, which I'll keep on repeating. While this is about application, in this case a medical application, one can claim that this philosophical practice is available to all kinds of educators. All kinds, insofar as a very specific one, very individual for a lot of you, is that, may mahina nga pala internet, maybe I'll remove my face. When you're going to do your thesis, when you're going to do your research, that will be part of what you will do. That kind of abstraction, which is actually still grounded in the concrete. Why is it still grounded in the concrete? It's grounded in the concrete because at some point you must have some idea about how to operationalize it, so to speak. But again, that's why there is something to think about there. Once you realize that the background really of operationalism is physics. But of course, as educators yourselves, I think a lot of you have also put that in the chat room. You could use this when you're starting to talk about definitions, when you have to clarify them in a class, when you're making, when you're having a discussion, especially if there are difficulties in discussion. But sometimes, in fact, of course, sometimes people, you need to be clear that there are really difficulties in the definitions themselves. So if you're reflecting on the thinking of definitions, what philosophers have been able to offer for a long time, both Eastern and Western philosophy, of course, this one, we already turned it Western, is conceptual clarification. And conceptual clarification is not limited to something that you will just do just because, sir, nangungulit lang ako, you just attended a few philosophy classes and then nanggugulo ka lang, no? Because even from the start, historically, philosophers are not just doing that. There's a part of it, of course, Socrates was kind of like nangungulit, nangaasar. Pero in this case, not just physics, this is actually biology and in medicine. Among other things, philosophers examine the meaning and historical development of the concepts that are involved in formulating a specific paradox, and look at how this paradox may relate to other scientific problems. No, I hope you're familiar with this one. May nagtanong yata. Yeah, that's right. Someone saying there are words which are very complex and which meanings vary depending upon their use and origin and etymology. But that's also why it's very important, because you have to try to be clear about that, especially in your research, because if it turns out you came up with a definition which is backwards, which is the reverse of what you wanted to talk about, you're going to be in real trouble. But I guess everyone here is familiar with the picture here. These are chemical bonds. You know? So Vanessa Seifert actually published this in a chemistry journal. You know? And it's very important, although this is a lot of philosophy and philosophy of science education, very important to highlight this, especially since we're in the Philippines, was that if you really want to study science also, if you really want to immerse yourself also in education, and I hope you've seen it already, it's very important that you study history. It's very important. That will now place your definitions and how your problems will hang together with those definitions. That would give it a context. That's why this is very important, because we have in the Philippines, historically, we have a problem with history. And it sounds weird to see this, but after all, we're already in the 21st century, that it's actually from the study of science, philosophically, that there's a philosophical justification for the importance of history. Whether you're talking about it as a method, whether you're talking about it as a curriculum, whether you're talking about it as history in general for Filipinos. So it ties in with the energizer that you had with Andres Bonifacio. Because even in science, even in the deeper studies of science, ay kailangan pala alam mo yung kasaysayan niya. It's very important. No? In fact, this one, I'm pointing at it but you don't see me. This one, historically, the model, that's an old model. But you see, even here, from philosophy, we go to science, physics, biology, chemistry, but history is there. It's a very important context, especially when you're trying to define. So it's not just for physics, but for all educators. Participating in philosophical dialogue helps students think critically by encouraging them to ask questions, identify assumptions, reflect on their position. And this is written by a a chemist, in fact, who now became an educator with higher degree in education, advanced chemist background, David Reed. In engaging with peers, so he's talking about actually the teaching of chemistry. Because traditionally, that's why in their journal, they're talking about the usual stereotypes of when you teach chemistry or science. Si Sir, mahirap yan. So what can you do there? So he's actually advocating the use of philosophical practices there. Someone say something. Okay, someone else. So in engaging with peers, students need to justify their views and explore other perspectives. At school level, philosophical inquiry can promote meaningful dialogue around the construction of scientific knowledge and ideas. Any teacher knows that an innate sense of curiosity is a key characteristic of a proactive, independent learner. The use of philosophical dialogue may be an effective way to pique students' interest in the subject. That's why in subject here, it's very important to take note of, because you might say, sir, my subject, they're really interested in it already. I don't know. I don't know if you had that experience, no? Anyone really had that experience na, sir, sa subject pa lang, gusto na agad ng estudyante nyo umattend? Anyone? May ganun ba? Baka wala na. Meron ba? Meron pa lang, sir, sa ano pa lang, on paper pa lang. Does that still happen? Anyone? Sa subject pa lang, they're really excited to go to your subject without even know, let's say, you don't know the teacher. Anyone still have that experience? Meron pa ba doon? O wala na? Wait, may nagsulat. Meron pa na, EBLM, Meron pa na, I don't know when the kids get older, di ba? Yung tipong kahit hindi ka kilala, di ba? Like, oy, no, basta to subject na to. But of course, si David, meron pa po math. Well, that's nice if there's still math and SH senior high school. I've had quite a few math teachers. They're really good in what they do. And it's good that we still have that. But again, pag nakita mo kunyari chemistry, and let's say if you're talking about a difficult part of your subject, sometimes if they're excited at the beginning, ba't natin pag-uusapan to? Like if you're talking about mathematics, some people might not like, sir, magdi-derivatives na tayo, mag-integral na tayo. They might not like it. No? But the reason I am bringing up mathematics is because stereotypically, something like mathematics, especially mathematics, yun yung stereotype, ayun yung mahirap yan, sir. O chemistry, mahirap rin yan, sir. But the thing is, that's why, and we started with Bridgman. Si Bridgman, ginawa niya yun as a result of Einstein. Pero, the thing is, si Bridgman mismo, kahit si Einstein yun, he did not like what happened with Einstein. Insofar as, why did he not like it? Because he was teaching a class. No? Yes, that's right. Pag master mo po, yeah, very important. So there's that aspect wherein Einstein discovery. But the other aspect which people forget, these people in physics also, they're educators. In philosophy, very important historically, even before people started making it what we would call now as education, yun yung concern. There is something that you need to impart that might be difficult, so which is another way of saying na, sir, hindi lang siya yung mga everyday na bagay. Maybe I'll relate to the everyday na bagay. Maybe I will get their interest to the everyday na bagay. But I need to impart it. I need to teach it. In fact, it's one of the earliest dialogues you might find in both Eastern and Western philosophy. Without being specific, if you're going to say that there's something difficult, It's not just merely about something every day. Someone needs to impart it. That is still our problem now. Now, here's a chemist saying you could use basically what a lot of people might say is the Socratic method to teach chemistry. In fact, and by the way, we're actually near the end. I don't know if you're familiar with the NAPLAN scores. And it actually connects with our last lesson with Dr. Abenes and his student, which I actually met her like a long time ago when they were talking about it, philosophy for children. No? What was that? Did someone write something? If you wanted to boost the score for mathematics, reading, and science, you have them do philosophy. Now, this is an old study, unfortunately. This is the 2013 study, although this is a 2016 article from the Conversation. And NAPLAN is comparable to a lot of the tests that we subject students to, the international test, in fact. And unfortunately, we do have a problem with these tests. I hope you're already aware of this. You might not need to be aware of this as a teacher, maybe, but as a graduate student, I hope you're aware that it's something that you need to think about our results with the PISA. How is our results with the PISA? Anyone want to say something about that? It's very low. Now, here's the thing, that's why it's... meron nga pala isa pa, no? Oh, no. But the thing is, it's very important. On the one hand, if I were just promoting philosophy and philosophy for children, ayos, you could use it for your class. But on the other hand, since this is a philosophy class, we actually have to ask ourselves, what does that actually mean for education in the Philippines? We have to reflect on our thinking about it. Because on the one hand, ayos to. Sir, ayos yan pag nag-Ed 701 ako, meron pala ako maybe after some time, you read again, no? Kasi Bliscoop is very fast. You could use some activities, you could incorporate it, so operational definition and all that. Pero at some point, like any philosopher would especially the ancient philosophers, what is that actually for? So we go back to, this is actually the last slide, no? But it's something that maybe you're not as aware of. That when you say paradigm, yeah, it can serve as a baseline for the educational sector to improve the quality of basic education. But the problem is, the problem about that one. Did you need to do the PISA to try and improve the quality of basic education? In other words, did you need to do it? Like, kailangan pa ba natin malaman na ganito yung score natin para i-improve yun? Did we need to do that? Di ba? No. So that's why there's a question there, which is actually, you might say, sir, so that's a scientific question also. What are you actually testing for there? But yeah, you can have that as a baseline. But in fact, people might say na, sir, parang may baseline na tayo noon, di ba? So when we go back to another scientist who actually abandoned his profession, so to speak, or was kicked out, there's different accounts of it, no? Kuhn. Thomas Kuhn, when you use the term paradigm, it's actually often due to Kuhn, no? And his background before was physics. Yeah, low results in the NAP. on the one hand, that's why I have a picture there about a problem. When you say paradigm, it's not just the framework or perspective. For Kuhn, that's why this is very important. It's the set of puzzles or problems when you talk about your discipline. That's how it's defined. That's one. Although there's many that he puts there, but he reiterates these two senses. So yung set of problems or puzzles. The other one, which is very specific. That's why I put Einstein here again. So yung exemplar. So kung physicist ka, sir, paradigm exemplar. Sir, sana all. Sana all, sir, ay what? Einstein. Now, the question is, what could be the paradigm of Philippine education? And that's why this is important, because if you know what the paradigm is, it explains a lot, unfortunately. We can already know, yeah, of course, yeah, that's right. In other words, you don't really need that. But I'd have to say that our paradigm, and that's why it's something that if you're gonna say, sir, ano yung Philippine educational paradigm? Wherein ito kasi yung set of problems, set of puzzles sa Philippine education. What's its research or disciplinary matrix? That's its term. Or ano yung sana all factor? Ano yun? The paradigm, I would have to say, and this one is actually also problematic. The paradigm is still that of a classroom. So this is a kind of course, this is obviously a foreign classroom, some people might say, and they're in a computer room. It's still a classroom. Online, it's still a classroom. I hope you still remember that. There was talk before about how to solve the problems of Philippine education. That's actually one. That's the general question. How was it talked about? They were talking about it in terms of what? Should I have the decorations or, diba? May mga decorations pa sa classroom or what? Do people remember that? Whether you should have the stuff in the classroom, the bulletin boards, do you remember that? Diba? And the thing is, I hope you see, or it's completely bare. Diba? I hope you see that there's a problem with that paradigm. The first one, of course, is that if that's your set of puzzles which inform your framework, you might be ignoring other problems. And I'd have to say it has been the history of Philippine education that we have ignored a lot of problems. The other one is, sir, and again, we're talking about how it's talked about. The other one is the exemplar. Diba? What's the exemplar? Sir, sana lahat may ganito, like in the picture. But I hope you already know, that's why there's a problem with that paradigm, because it's a very limited paradigm. And a lot of you are already experiencing it. So, in fact, pag-usapang Zoom is still a classroom. It's just that it's what? Sa Philippines. Sir, may Zoom tayo o may Google Meet tayo, but it's still what? It's still a classroom. Pero naging online lang. Diba? But I hope you see that it ignores what does it ignore as a problem in the Philippines? Ano yung in-ignore nun? Nag-online kayo, pero well, it might be something, yeah. When you start talking about connectivity, when you think about it, when you start talking about connectivity, nandun pa ba yun sa classroom? No, so that's something that you need to think about. On the one hand, the paradigm can guide you, but on the other hand, of course, it's also a limit. Yeah, the physical interaction and engagement, but that one is still in terms of the classroom. No? We keep on talking about it. No? In fact, parang walang lalagay dito. Lalo na yung sa PISA. Do you know how to solve in PISA? There's an easy way of solving it. Did you know that? We could go back later for that one. But anyway, I guess it's time for you to have your breakout rooms, but it's something to think about in Paradise. Maybe we could talk about that one. Because on the one hand, ito kasi yung nag-guide ng framework kasi today mga problems and puzzles. The other one is because, sir, yung exemplar. So you're going to talk about, sir, sana may kami, yung magandang LCD projector and all those other things, internet connectivity. Pero of course, you know that, sir, may ganun ba sa Philippines? We don't really have that. So thank you. I guess you might have questions later, but I think, John Ray, are you going to, I think you're going to have some breakout probably to process this also? And maybe
Yes,
questions.
Doc. Yes, Doc. So we will be proceeding to different breakout room. Then later on, they will be presenting the synthesis per group.
And maybe some questions, if you have questions about it. Like for instance, paano yung solve in PISA? It's very actually easy to solve. Simple, not easy. Simple answer for that one. I can give you already. Maybe some of you already know that. That tipong, sir, sagot na agad dun ah. Pero that's why it's not the paradigm. Ay, okay. Thank you.
Doc, last question, please. What would be the subject of their sharing?
I guess the subject of the sharing is the problems. I'm sorry about that. Yung sa huli nga about if the classroom is our paradigm, how come it's very important, no? We can keep on talking about improving Philippine education, but the very markers that we set for ourselves, whether it's the PISA or the teams, no? Some of you are probably familiar with the teams. Is everyone familiar with teams? How come we fall short of it? And in fact, it turns out, kailan daw lalabas? December, nag-ano na naman tayo, no? Nag-PISA tayo, no?
December 5, sir.
Oo, December 5. Naku, patay. My God. I'd have to say, I don't think we will improve much if we do improve. And it actually ties in with why we do contemporary philosophy of education. And why, it sounds weird, but by the deeper study of philosophy, you're led to the importance of the study of history. Someone put here, teacher factors naman lahat. Actually hindi. Yun yung problem pag ginawa mo siya sa classroom. Pag sa classroom talaga, it's easy to point out, kasi si teacher di ba? There's only one, may nagtanong. There's only one anime. There's only one. No? Someone, because that's the one I'm more familiar with, but the other ones are not. So, yun nga, patulfo agad. Kaya yun, by the way, kaya yun, nakalagay dito, ito rin nangyayari. Pag classroom model, si Sir John Ray, nako, patulfo mo yan, may ginawa siya, ganun agad. Either ganun, o maayos na. Or the opposite of it. Siguro kaya may kaso si Sir John Ray, kasi pogi siya, yung mga ganun yung mga pinag-uusapan. No? Pogi siya attractive siya sa mga babae and all those other things. But in fact, even with the PISA, from a research perspective, that's why you already know there's a problem with limiting it to the classroom. And I hope it comes out kung ano yung problems about having your paradigm is limited to the classroom. On the one hand, of course, kailangan may paradigm tayo, no? May thesis, ha? May thesis kaya kailangan gamitin niyo yun tungkol sa mga definitions and all that. No? Hindi talaga lahat. Someone put that. Hindi talaga lahat. Pero pag yung paradigm natin ay classroom, lahat mangyayari doon. Yun ang mangyayari doon. You blame ko agad doon si Ma'am Amor kasi. Di ba? By the way, all these countries na biniblame yung teachers, they have something very much in common. Yung mga biniblame yung teacher lagi, they have something very much in common. So pag na-limit, you could talk about that. Kaya nga, nabiblame natin na teacher factor. Maybe it's something that you could think about also. Pag yung paradigm, classroom, pero teka, baka may nakalimutan. Ano yung nakalimutan? May nagano sa CIN. Yes, there is. Saulo, there is. At teaching and learning processes pair, that's Australia. So ito na include sa classroom. The problem with comparing classrooms, Australian education to Philippine education, our paradigms are different. Kung puro classroom pa rin tayo, hindi magtutugma yun. But that's why we have to look at it. Of course, may problems talaga sa classroom. Pero pag puro classroom na lang, sisisihin ko lagi. Yan, kasi si Ma'am LG. O yun nga, problema yung OSAID, di naman pinapakala natin. Pero yung Australia mismo, anyway, you talk about that one. Kaya ngayon yung paradigm. Kaya, by the way, kaya nga binobombard ang teachers with stuff. Kasi classroom pa rin. Alright? Yeah. Sorry, what? Ay, hindi pala, sorry. I guess you could go to your break. I guess you could go to your breakout rooms now. And I'll see you. Hopefully there's discussion also. Thank you.
Prof, kahit saan lang po ba mag-join?
Yes po, yes po.
Okay, thank you po.
Hello po, sir. Permission to ask po.
Ma'am Avi, pa-help po ng breakout room natin, ma'am.
Sir, good evening po.
Yes po, yes po, sir.
Saan po ako kasali, sir? Sa breakout?
Teka, hinahanap ko pa si Ma'am Avi. Teka, Ma'am Avi? Paano ba?
Sir, nag-join na lang kami kung saan namin gustong number.
Sige, go ahead.
Thank you. Sir.
Hello po sir, permission to speak po sir.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead po.
Wala po kaming makita sa aking end po sir na breakout room po sir.
Teka, tanungin natin yung GT.
Thank you po sir.
Sir. Wala na po sa akin.
Nasa more siya, ma'am. More. Click on more.
Hello po, permission to speak. Kahit saan room po kami pumasok, okay lang po?
Yes po, sir. Yes po, sir.
Okay po, thank you po.
Hello po, permission to speak po.
Yes, ma'am.
Ay sir, saan po yung breakout room? Sensya na
Ah,
po.
Sa ilalim po ng mga name na nakalist, meron pong room numbers. Tapos sa kabilang, I think sa left, right wing may join icon, so you can just click it.
Somewhere po, somewhere.
Opo, ma'am.
Thank you po.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Am I heard? Audible po?
Yes,
po,
po.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes po. Maraming, I think maraming excited. Maraming excited. Maraming excited mag-share, sir.
Narinig po kayo.
Okay, so I think the virtual floor is ready. So we'll have representatives from each breakout room to synthesize what were shared during the breakout session. So just let us know from which breakout room. Okay, yun. Yes, Ma'am Charmaine.
Hello, good evening to all po. Okay, since napag-usapan po natin yung result ng PISA kanina, and the question is yung paradigm, ano bang meron, bakit pa patuloy na bumaba yung result ng mga bata pagdating sa PISA and other examinations. Okay, so dun sa discussion namin, sir, yung paradigm, hindi na siya nakafocus sa teachers. Kasi if you talk about theories or pedagogies of teaching, nakafocus yan primarily sa curriculum, teachers and students. However, hindi lang doon. Kasi kahit ideal yung curriculum, kung hindi properly implemented, kung walang resources, kung yung context, hindi applicable yung curriculum sa context or sa lugar, problema pa rin ang implementation. Another, na kukonsider din yung, for example, family factors. Pwede rin pag-usapan natin dyan yung implementation, for example, management style ng school head, management style ng supervisors. For example, nag-excel tayo sa pagdating sa MPS, pero ang tanong, yung MPS bang result ay valid and reliable? Mataas MPS pero pagdating sa visa mababa. Kasi baka naman hindi reliable ang na-send information kasi pressured ang nasa ilalim. Or aside from that, totoo lang, naniniwala ako na wala naman teacher na walang passion for teaching. Pero maraming factors pa. Another one is ancillary. As much as we would want to prepare always, grandiose, hindi man grandiose, kahit yung simple pero may differentiated activities para sa mga estudyante may iba't ibang learning needs. Kung walang enough time for teachers to do it every day, mahirap i-expect na magagawa yun every day. So ako, based sa observation namin, on behalf of my group mates, nakikita po namin sa breakout room number 3 na ang paradigm ay mababago, depende sa lugar, depende sa sitwasyon, at depende po sa mga estudyante, teachers na bumubuo ng isang organization or academic institution. Thank you so much po. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, we have Sir John.
Yes po, sir. Good evening. So from breakout room 23, the CIN group, we had our discussion on what really limits us and our learners. Now, number one, being in the team of those who are actually involved in the formulation and improvement of the curriculum, we found out that the greatest challenge among our learners and the teachers is the provision of good questions. There is a great concern on our assessment level, the assessment types that we give. Our levels of questioning are actually on the low level skills, of which are too far to the questioning system of the PISA. So yun yung kailangan natin i-improve. And also in our formative and summative assessment in the classroom level, we do not actually use the levels of questioning that are used in the international assessment standards. So yun po yung isa. The other thing is, most of our teachers are actually labored to teach from cover to cover because we are actually being pressured to finish the competency intended for certain months instead of crystallizing the ideas for our learners and make it or see to it that they are certain on the knowledge that they have gained for every lesson. So yun po yung dalawa na pinaka nakita namin na problema natin in our educational system that keep us contained on our performance. And I guess Ma'am Esther would have an additional to that. Ma'am Esther?
Yes, sir. Thank you po. Same
same breakout room po, no? So from breakout room 23, what we saw and we were contemplating on the proposal of Dr. Apolega about the idea na kung bakit ang ating Philippine educational system ay kumbaga kulang at mababa ang performance sa PISA and TIMSS is because of the framework of our Philippine educational system is really classroom framework. So we wanted to look at, in our discussion, we looked at several ideas. Bakit ganun nga ba? Anong effect ng classroom framework sa amin bilang mga kaguruan, bilang school heads, at kung paano ito paano nito naibabox, no, yung ating mga activities and ideas and educational decisions that we make because really bilang isang guro, talaga pong hindi naman talaga pwedeng mag-break away from what the department is implementing or telling us to do. Therefore, it's really very limited. It limits our time sa kung ano yung kailan at kailan namin dapat i-implement yung mga o ituro ang mga certain lessons, and the competencies are fixed. So just like the idea that this was Isaac Newton's parang fixed idea of time, parang if we look at it, nagsisimula na internationally ang pag-contemplate and preparations for Education 5.0, which has a characteristic of fluidity. While we in the Philippine educational system is still bothered by trying to reach or i-level ang ating mga estudyante dun sa mga standards na ibinibigay sa atin. Kaya nga sabi namin na nakakaiyak dahil parang yung concerns natin bilang educators, school heads, ay nandun pa rin sa kung paano natin iaangat sa standard. Bago pa tayo siguro makarating at mai-address yung sense ng fluidity and really getting to the individualization and contextualization of what our learners should be learning, whether they're in the classroom or maybe there is a better framework for them outside of the classroom. So yun po, as for the proposed solution, wala po, parang nakikita lang namin talaga. Siguro ito yung mga pinoproblema base sa aming mga experiences. So yun po, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ma'am Esther. So, Ma'am Elaine.
Yes, good evening po, sir. Good evening, classmates. Am I audible po?
Yes po.
Ay, thank you po, sir. Okay, so we are from breakout room number 20 po. So this is our synthesis of what are the problems we are encountering in our classroom, why we did not reach the standards of international assessment. So we focused on basic education po. So most of us emphasized the reading and numeracy weak foundation. Why? Because the teachers are bombarded with a lot of ancillary tasks. They lack time, they lack focus to teach our students properly. Plus, dagdag pa natin dyan that the curriculum is so congested. So sabi nga po ng mga nauna sa akin, the teachers are forced to teach from cover to cover. But that is near impossible kasi our curriculum is very congested. Since most of us are teaching in the senior high school, we can really see the effects and the impact of not having a strong educational foundation in basic education foundation in reading and numeracy. So some of our students po, as shared by my group mates in breakout room 20, they reach senior high school without they cannot comprehend what they are reading. Some of them can read, but they cannot comprehend. But mas malala po is some of them cannot read while they are taking strands in the senior high school. So how can you expect to excel a student, for a student to excel if they cannot understand simple words, simple sentences? Okay po? So if they cannot compute simple equations. Okay po? So yun po yung mga factors na nakita po namin in the senior high school. But of course, sabi nga dito, we cannot give what we don't have. If we can't develop the skills of our learners, teachers should be empowered, trained, and motivated to give their excellent service with faith, effectively and efficiently. That's all po. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Sir John Ray, nakamute po kayo.
Nakamute po kayo, sir.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Sir Tanay.
Yes po. Good evening po sa inyong lahat. Galing po ako sa room, breakout room number 9. Parehas naman ang observation namin sa mga nasabi ng mga nauna. So nandun talaga congested ang curriculum. Pero balikan natin yung tanong. Ano bang mangyayari kung ang paradigm natin is classroom pa rin? So medyo nahirapan nga ako mag-isip ano ba yung sasagot doon. Actually, kung titingnan natin, I think we have to really shift our paradigm from classroom to the outside world. Kasi kung palagi nakakulong lang tayo sa classroom, so we are just preparing our students to answer the test questions, to answer the summative test as well as the quarterly assessment. But kung mag-shift tayo ng paradigm, we are going to bring them outside. We should be preparing our students in real life situation, di ba? So yun lang naman po.
Thank you po for your insight, sir. Okay, next will be Sir Raymond Bustamante.
Hello po, magandang gabi po sa lahat. So, nanggaling po ako sa breakout room number 19. So, ang sinasabi po ni Sir kanina siguro, ang ginamit niya is experiential learning, no? So, dapat ibigay natin sa mga bata yung authentic assessment para mas maganda yung result ng kanilang mga scores or performance. So, based po sa aming napag-usapan sa breakout room number 19, so isa sa mga problema na kinakaharap ng aming schools ay yung siguro yung mass promotion din, dahil according po sa SBM practitioner, kasi yung school namin is SBM accredited na po, level 2. So based po sa nakikita ko doon is kailangan i-promote yung mga bata dahil kung maraming dropout ay magbaba yung KPIs or the key performance indicators ng school ninyo. Yun yung sinabi ng taga-region. So ang school namin, so para magtaas yung performance, so i-mass promotion yung mga bata kahit non-reader or slow learner or kahit maraming absent, hindi pwedeng i-drop kasi kapag taas yung dropout rate ninyo, magbaba yung performance ng school ninyo. So yun po yung isang problem na nakikita po namin, bakit marami pa rin mga bata ang slow learner or yung mga non-readers po talaga. So another one is tama rin yung sabi nila sir kanina, yung sa naunang nagsabi po na yung PISA, kasi isa rin po ako sa coordinator ng last PISA na examination. Isa po ang school namin sa sample school na nakuha na PISA. And then based po doon sa mga questions na ibinigay nila is grabe po yung level mataas po talaga ang level ng question ng PISA, which is hindi po usually binibigay sa mga estudyante dahil kahit simple questions pa lang po, basic questions, lalo na sa math, ay mababa po yung comprehension ng mga bata when it comes to problem solving. So doon pa lang sa simple question na yun, kung hindi pa masagutan ng bata, how more doon pa po sa questions na galing sa PISA. So based po doon sa nakita ko sa question ng PISA, ay parang integrated po yung tatlong subject like math, English, and science sa isang tanong. Magbibigay lang sila ng scenario or story ng food web. Tapos merong conversion ng ng math and then integration ng English. So doon pa lang po sa tanong nila, masasabi kahit kami na mga teachers, ganito talaga yung tanong ng PISA. Kaya nagtaka kami paano ka ito masasagutan ng bata kahit nag-conduct kami ng intensive review sa mga estudyante namin. Nung tinanong namin sila after ng exam, mahirap daw po talaga. So yung level po ng tanong sa PISA, which is hindi po na-apply siguro most of the schools here in the Philippines, kaya po siguro mababa yung result ng PISA. Yun lang po, sir. Thank you po.
Thank you so much for your insight, Sir Raymond. Next will be Sir Jennifer Pajares. Sir?
Hi, hello po, Prof. Doc. Good evening po, Jennifer po.
Okay, Jennifer.
I'm from breakout number 17. What we see po and talk about was that yung sa mga facilities, classrooms, yung insufficiency, deficiency. Pero for me po kasi, I believe, actually, yun naman pong kasama po sa one of our main goals in the educational systems, that to provide our learners with a conducive learning environment. Ang nakikita ko lang po, for me po, what I believe that is lacking in the educational systems, that the budget per se. Kasi yes, perhaps we all agree that shifting our paradigm into something that is globally competitive, to make our learner also globally competitive also, somehow it is still requires budget. Yun po yung pinakang root cause eh. Excuse me po, pero yun yung katotohanan, even in the teachers training, trainings ng mga bata, provision of classroom that is 21st, yung tinatawag po nilang 21st CLEM, o 21st century learning environment model, wherein it is already happening po in other countries. Yung classroom nila is air condition, meron silang tinatawag natin smart board, and then they are already utilizing some robotics in their STE or STEM. Here in the Philippines, isa po ang tingin ko kung magkakaroon ng proposed solution is that provision of budget and provision and prioritization of education. Kasi lahat pong yan, kung hindi magkakaroon ng budget, hindi po mangyayari. Sa tagal na po naging problema niyan ng mga sinasabi po natin, binabanggit natin, hindi po nangyayari o na-materialize because of the budget itself. Yun lang po. Thank you po.
Thank you po, sir. Next will be Ma'am Mary Grace Tanal. Ma'am?
Evening po. Am I audible po?
Yes po, ma'am.
Thank you very much po. Actually, I'm breakout room number 8, and I believe we have prepared Canva presentation. Thank you po sa nag-initiative. All right. So for the first question, fall short in the international assessment, such as and terms. These are the synthesized answers we have produced during our breakout room discussion. Factors that contribute to this, let's say, failure. performing well in this assessment. So first, one of our members that it's the medium of instruction that we use, especially in the grade level, elementary level, and then moving up, which means that if we want to perform well in PISA, we have to strengthen. We have to strengthen our proficiency in the English language, which means that we need to shift our medium of instruction to one that will allow us to perform well in these international assessments. Another factor would be the teaching methods, which are observed to be not all the time aligned with the assessment format, because the PISA type of questions, okay, they focus on functional literacy, critical literacy, analysis. However, some of the teachers or some of the teaching methods that are applied inside the classroom type of assessment. So that is one factor. Another is the reading ability of the students or their comprehension skills, which is really which might have, according to some studies, might have contributed largely to why we fell short in these international assessments, because our students are not to digging deep into what they can understand and that did not, or our education in the Philippine setting did focus on the 4 R's in the primary level, while in some country they have this foundational skill developed at an early age. So that is also a next slide, ma'am. And then we have lack of like what we have discussed of we are not ready for this kind of international assessments because our setting, our educational leap is not aligned to this type of assessments. Okay, we do not have that global set yet able to hit at least the top 10 or top 5 well-performing ranks in PISA and TIMSS. Okay, and then another factor is that is one that is focused on the role of language in the academic success of students. One of our members said that if students are not proficient in the target language, which is English, PISA and TIMSS, it would hinder ability to comprehend and perform well in this international assessment. So these are the contributing factors as to why forms. Okay, for the next question, next slide. I'm sorry. The next slide focuses on the possible solutions to this here. So first is to enhance our teaching of critical thinking and functional literacy students even at an early age. So prepare them not just for PISA and TIMSS, but next is to improve the of our students in English and the application of English in living. To try integrate, well, not try, but integrate that of international assessments in our localized assessments, like quarterly assessments, formative and summative formats. Another solution is to provide appropriate learning and learning resources for all. Then we can perform in these assessments. And then it's almost the same rating PISA type of questions, both formative and summative tests, so that around we will be, or our students will be with these types of assessments. The other question, so we fall short in PISA and TIMSS. So the other question that we all about the problems what are the problems arise when we use the classroom as the paradigm of education. And these are the that we synthesize during our breakout room discussion. Next slide, ma'am. So, with the use of this means that it becomes one size fits all. The education becomes one size fits all. We often follow a standardized curriculum and teaching methods with the assumption that all students will learn at the same pace and in the same way or in the same manner. However, this is not the reality that we face when we use the classroom ecology paradigm or the classroom paradigm. Another is that maybe the classroom environment, well, it's not a maybe, but it's definitely one of the problems that will actually arise from using the classroom paradigm. Since what the other group discussed is that we have low budget coming from the government to provide students with comfortable space of learning, for learning. Okay, the classrooms should be comfortable enough, especially during the summer season, now that we have entered a different education schedule in the country. Okay, and then another problem arising from the classroom paradigm is that we have too many competencies that the students, even the teachers, most especially the teachers, are overwhelmed because they're pressured to achieve those competencies. The other problems from arising from classroom paradigm are, next slide, ma'am. There is no mastery of the subject matter because this is linked with to having too many competencies, and it makes the students go out of focus. Okay, there's also problem in integrating and manipulating technology among students, especially if the school is like a farm school or a rural school. They're not aware, they're not exposed to different types of technology, hence they cannot use it, hence the teacher cannot integrate it in their instructions. Also, the students lack the prerequisite skills and knowledge because of many factors such as inadequate school resources like textbooks, gadgets, classroom facilities. There's also insufficient time allotment because of too many subjects. Next slide, ma'am. All right. Sorry. That's the, because we ran out. Those are we have tackled so far in our breakout room number 8.
Okay. Thank you very
Much
much.
po.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Mary Grace, for your insight and also for the PowerPoint presentation. And also, our next will be Sir Brian Manile.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. I'm audible, ma'am. Nadidinig po ako, ma'am.
Yes po, you are.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good afternoon po. Kami po sa breakaway number 6. Break room number 6. Actually po, the problem we talk about is the migration of DepEd to the digital world. Kasi ang mga estudyante natin, Facebook lover, ibig sabihin nasa digital world sila. Pero the DepEd cannot migrate to that area na kung saan ang estudyante natin, yun na yung gusto. So nasa old ways pa rin tayo ng pagtuturo. Kaya yung paradigm natin, hindi na nakasabay doon sa kung ano na ang gusto ng mga estudyante. That is number 1. Number 2, budget in the government. Kasi imagine, only 10% ng education ang kinikater ng private school na kung saan very technical and high-tech yung kanilang classroom setting. Pero yung 90% ng estudyante natin, nasa old times pa rin ang pag-aaral. Kaya parang ang hirap sabayan yung demand ng PISA para ma-reach natin yung ganong klaseng standard. Libro na nga lang para sa mga bata ay hindi available. So parang ang hirap atang ma-meet yung gusto nila doon sa world standard. And number 3, ang education system natin ay siya ay dinidemand ng mga nagpautang sa atin ng pera kung paano natin i-frame ang ating curriculum. hindi siya nakabase doon sa context ng mga Filipino citizen. Dinidemand ito ng mga nagpapautang sa atin na dapat ganitong paraan nyo ituturo yung mga subject na ito kasi ginagawa tayong experimentation para i-apply sa kanila, hindi pala effective to, o ganito dapat natin gawin. Kaya parang nagiging experimental site ang Philippines ng mga malalaking bansa na nagbibigay sa kanya ng pondo para i-apply yung particular na curriculum. Kaya mapapansin nyo, every time nag-iiba yung curriculum ng DepEd. Wala siyang consistent curriculum na ituturo sa bata. Every generation, iba yung curriculum na na-encounter. Kaya anong aasahan natin pagdating sa international standard ng assessment? Hindi tayo fix sa pagtuturo sa kanila. And finally, the loading of teachers, imagine. 7 loads na yung hawak mo, underload ka pa. You have only 8 hours of time para magturo sa maghapon. Anong lakas pa ang ilalaan mo para magkaroon ka ng differentiated instruction, different instructional materials na ituro sa bata? To think na yung time na binigay sa'yo is not enough to do everything para mabigay yung best ng isang guro. Kaya all those issues na aming concern ay parang suntok sa buwan paano bibigyan ng solution if even the government doesn't know how to give a straight back solution to that problem. Yun lang po at kami po ay sa breakout number 6. Thank you po.
Thank you po, Sir Brian. Next will be Sir Esperanza. Sir?
Good evening po.
Ay, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay po. Just this morning po, we celebrated our Filipino Values Month, and this year's theme is matatag na edukasyon, matatag na karakter, kaakibat ng maayos na kinabukasan ng bawat Pilipino. I believe we are all after this high stakes test because we would like to have sort of an assurance how we are doing as Filipinos in our pursuit of ensuring that we would have a good future ahead of us. So, ang sa akin lang po, I don't see that the education currently is matatag because rampant ang mass promotion. Kanina lang I am actually from group 1, breakout room 1, and kapag nag-mass promotion, just imagine po, no, before we were saying na ang mga bata ngayon hindi na daw marunong mag-memorize, even they could not establish yung concepts of yung mga deeper concepts in mathematics and principles just because they don't have a solid foundation of the multiplication table or the multiplication table because walang memorization. Yes, we understand that we are preparing our students to be critical minded and to get used to high order thinking skills. However, their lower order thinking skills have to be first met. Diba po? Dapat it has to be solid because those are the foundation. You cannot step up or advance when you have very how do you call this? Ano ba tawag dito? Mahina na pundasyon, right? The moment you try to skip a step, right? It's either we fall or trip, or yung ating inakyatan is more likely to collapse. So it's not matatag na edukasyon. So imagine kanina it was mentioned na why do high learner performance indicators claimed by schools actually do not match or translate in high stakes exam? Dapat medyo aligned at least. And then I hope there will be a possibility for a flexible learning pathways through a sort of 3-tiered curriculum or 4-tiered kung possible. I actually came across this in curriculum in our subject or subject curriculum where really a curriculum can never be a one-size-fits-all. So I believe kung tayo nag-aaral tayo, if we are doing virtual learning or online learning, or kaya when we are trying to test our abilities, we are often have the option of choosing. Would you want to start as a beginner or as an intermediate? Or would you like, if you feel like more comfortable already and competent enough, then you can advance or choose the advanced level. This way could be more inclusive and truly learner appropriate kung nakatier yung ating curriculum. teachers would have an idea, hindi na siya mahirapan. Paano ko ba i-differentiate to? When she knows na kapag itong mga batang to medyo mahina, then I can apply this curriculum. The same learning content, same competencies, except that there are different approaches how to deal with it. Now, also sa akin, yung building a foundation has to focus on reading. And numeracy, of course, and science, good foundation in science, and definitely critical thinking. And yung problem solving, in real life scenarios, right? So, also, nakita ko rin, if I'm not mistaken, these high stakes exam are conducted or administered in the traditional or typical paper and pencil tests. And it's true that our students no longer know how to interact with the prints. I remember before the pandemic, when I was still starting in the public school, I was actually tutoring for the longest years in my life. Students from prestigious schools like Ateneo, Miriam, and I had a good experience, or a good experience with doing tutorials. Even if I'm a psychology graduate and teaching values education now, I did focus on reading. Now, sabi ko, I was able to realize that the reason why even the grade 2 students, sabi nung parent na doktor, na mga doktor, ako pinagkaanak, I would send them to Miriam, pag babae, Ateneo, pag lalaki. Yet, they got frustrated that they could not read. Sabi ko, you know what, ma'am, because of the diversions, because of the distractions that we have now, ang daming subjects, ang daming, we are enrolling them pa to other, how do you call this, mga self-development kind of learning like dancing, painting, pero hindi pa nga na-develop yung 3 Rs, right? So I believe getting the students interact with the prints, like before, naalala ko, sabi ng Ateneo kong estudyante, we don't really use tablets. The school does not want yet, because unlike LaSalle, which were using tablets already, the Ateneo really would prefer yung prints. And kasi with the prints, unlike the digital media, they can, they are still, and yung learning is possible at nandun lang kasi steady lang siya. And nasasabayan niya yung pace ng learner. And with the prints and the limited audio and the visualization, or yung mga visuals flashing on the screens and the audio and the devices that come with this digital nakakahamper siya ng development ng ng comprehension, ng visualization. When in fact with the prints, students could actually understand through context clues, through visualization. Therefore, imagination would, and yung kanilang literacy would develop really. And then, so I'm very hopeful that yung initiative at yung sinasabi ni Vice President Sara Duterte na Catch Up Fridays, on Fridays, effective January this year, would be a possible, we would embrace it in a way that we are given that time already, where we could get back to the lowest level if needed, so that the student can achieve learning, right? Sabihin na natin they were able to step up on a higher level, yet they're not ready for it, then we have now the chance to lead them back to the lower level just so they could achieve mastery. So ako, no to mass promotion, no advancement without mastery. And also I believe that education must not start and end in school. Before, bago pa lang tayo pumasok, tinuturuan na tayo magsulat, mag-try magbasa, pero ngayon, hindi na. We were all, though we are trying to establish good partnership with the parents, feeling ko kulang ang efforts in a way that ang dami ng possibilities, yet I don't know what's holding us back, the educational system, of imparting the knowledge, how we can best educate our students and extend the learning at home. Kasi ang problema ng mga teachers, we've been ranting, konti yung oras natin, konti yung oras natin. Pero is it not that the real learning laboratory for students is the home and the community? So why not um um allow some time where we can educate the parents. Ako, I got frustrated kaya ako nag-homeschool yung mga anak ko. I got frustrated that my children were not learning how to read when they were in preschool. And until homeschool ko sila until grade 6 and until high school, when they needed to get back to regular schooling. So sabi ko, I could no longer support the needs that, you know, na nagbabago and becoming more complex. So sabi ko sa if only, so what I did as a parent, good thing that I was capable. I researched, I studied, and that's why I ended up as a teacher and as a tutor first. Sabi ko, I hope I could teach my children how to read. So sabi ko, and I hope we could also do that with the parents by teaching them na tawag dito, applying yung literacy sa bahay, yung leaving messages, hindi lang text, cellphone, leaving a message on the fridge, right? Or reading stories before sleep, diba? So sabi ko, and I guess that's building partnership with parents. And again, another is actually ayun lang po. Wala na po akong nasa notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Esperanza. Now, Sir Jomar. Sir?
Good evening po sa lahat. Am I volunteer po? I'm from breakout room number 24 po. I always believe po kasi that the first step in solving any problem is to acknowledge po that there is a problem. And in the context of education po, it's crucial for the Department of Education to recognize and address these numerous issues po and concerns that may be overlooked or ignored po. And unfortunately, this oversight po contributes significantly to the gradual deterioration of the quality of basic education. This decline is very evident po in the national and international assessment na nabanggit po kanina, like the PISA, the TIMSS, and the CPLM. And what's interesting po is that the Department of Education mentioned last week when I attended the Central Luzon Association of Educational Leaders that they don't expect that the upcoming PISA results on December 5 to show much improvement po. It is self-evident po that the educational sector bears a portion of the blame for the continual decline in the quality of basic education. And while it's true that the abundance of the national and international research and achievement test results highlights areas for improvement, it also underscores po the urgent need for policy revisions po. And I believe one aspect that requires careful reconsideration po is the traditional classroom paradigm that was mentioned a while ago. The conventional model po, which is one-size-fits-all approach mentioned a while ago by one of our classmates, tend to overlook po the diverse learning needs and preferences po of the students. And this passive learning environment po where students are often mere recipients of information po may contribute to the observed decline in critical thinking skills po and creativity of the learners. Additionally po, the emphasis on the standardized testing within the classroom paradigm po can inadvertently, hindi sinasadya, encourage to prioritize memorization po over genuine understanding. I believe to foster this a positive change po in the education system, it is important to question and reconsider po this existing paradigm. A shift towards a more student-centered approach po, where we can incorporate personalized learning experiences, where we can incorporate technology integration, flexible learning environment, the use of flexible learning spaces po, and when we focus more on understanding and move away po from exclusive focus on standardized testing. So we need to emphasize po assessments that measure understanding, critical thinking and problem-solving skills, to name a few po, which may better address po the diverse needs of the students po. So by changing how we view po our classrooms, I believe we can create a more inclusive and dynamic education system po that aligns with the demands po of the 21st century. And also po, it would be good po if whatever programs or revisions one administration initiates, the succeeding administration po would support. Often when there is a new administration, we also get a new curriculum. We haven't yet seen the impact of one curriculum, and here comes another introduction to a new one. Sa totoo lang po, wala po tayong natatapos. Imagine po there will be a mass training for teachers comes June or July, and then in August, the teachers, will start using that training to teach. So it's too abrupt po. Masyado pong mabilis, and the teachers may not be given enough time to prepare thoroughly for that curriculum. So these reforms po will definitely not transform if we just disregard these issues and concerns. Salamat po.
Okay, I think last two. We have Sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sir Jomar, for your insights. Now let's hear from Miss Sir Makire Jody. Jody.
Hello po,
Sir,
good evening po
Lan.
everyone. Ayan, so bali on behalf of our group, galing po kami ng breakout room number 16. Ang mag-share po ay si Sir Gerson Dogos and Sir Clinton. Allow me to share my screen po. Sir Gerson.
Okay, so okay, so good evening to everyone. So from the breakout room number 16, MAPEL section 3. Sir, next slide, sir. So, ito po yung question na sinubukan namin sagutin, how to improve Philippine educational system. Kasi in result po doon sa natin sa PISA. So, ito po yung mga kailangan po natin: learning autonomy, diversity, thinking skills, alternative assessment, teachers as co-learners, focus on maintaining, tapos curriculum, learning, tapos curriculum integration. Next, sir. So, in recent year, there had been notable transformation in the educational framework of the Philippines. So, the nation enacted reform aimed to enhance educational quality and tackling concern related to the inclusive and fairness. A pivotal advancement involved the embrace of Education 4.0, incorporating cutting-edge technology and interventing technology approaches to meet the changing demand in the 21st century student. So to make it short po, kumbaga nag-i-aim po tayo na maging kasing husay ng mga karatig nating bansa, pero wala po tayong investment doon sa technology. So isa po sa pinakamahalagang factor po na kailangan nating i-consider po ay bago po natin kumbaga gumagawa tayo ng pattern po para i-solve yung problem po. Kumbaga kung tinitingnan natin ang ibang bansa na may ganitong technology, kailangan magkaroon din tayo nito para masabayan natin sila. Kasi kahit anong pong gawin natin, parang ang comparison po niyan, kung po natin, i-compare po natin, parang nakikipagsabayan tayo magturo yung dating traditional na visual aid at yung PowerPoint na gusto natin maging kasing bilis pero hindi natin ina-adapt yung technology na meron sila. Yun lang po to short the discussion in this slide. Next, sir. So moreover, there have been notable changes in perspective toward open education and electronic learning sources. Okay na, sir? So the impact of globalization and on the quantity and napabilis. So the paradigm shift is recognized as a contemporary model of education, altering the our cognitive pattern from one form to another. It exerts a substantial influence on our educational psychology. Bilis, masyado mabilis. Okay. Foster creativity in students. So the paradigm shift represent an ongoing evolution. Sir, masyado mabilis sir, naka-automatic sir ang anong sir. So dito po, to ano po, para paiklin lang po yung discussion, ito po yung naging point sa amin. Doon po sa mga nabanggit educational process, kung mga major component po, yung curriculum, teacher, and student. So kung kiniklaim natin na one big factor is teacher, tanungin natin si teacher kung bakit yung quality ng kanyang pagtuturo. Right. But the problem is, kapag nag-open yung teacher, ang sasabihin ay, kumbaga, umalis ka sa department kasi kung hindi mo kaya magampanan, maraming papalit. So, hindi po masasolve yung problema kapag ganun po yung approach na gagawin natin. Kailangan maging seryoso po tayo dun sa approach po natin ng solusyon. Then, i-test po natin to kung mag-work o hindi. Kapag hindi po, ulitin po natin, parang programming lang din po ang curriculum education. Kasi sa programming po, ang curriculum po natin, siya po yung program. Teacher po yung magalaw parang yung user. At yung estudyante po natin, siya po yung output natin para po maging mabilis po yung discussion natin. Kapag mali po ang in-input na program, magiging error din po ito doon sa teacher po. At yung magiging output natin ay magiging error din po. Pero hindi naman po nag-end ang mga bagay po doon sa pag-field po natin. Failure is the beginning pa lamang po. Kung i-accept lang na po natin yung error natin at susubukan po nating itama. Yun lang po ang pinaka-main point po. So may karagdagan po si Sir Clinton para sa aming grupo.
Hi, hello. Parang magta-time na rin, no? Gusto ko lang i-point out yung nasa comment section. Ang ganda ng conversation doon sa comment section natin. May nakikita akong mga feeding programs. I-run through nyo lang po, nasabi na po nilang lahat. Ayun po. Sir GTA?
Oh, okay po. So thank you very much, Sir Makira, for your insight. Now, our last scholar to share for tonight will be Ma'am Cecil Ferraz. Ma'am?
Hello po, magandang gabi. I am from breakout room number 5. So kami rin po yung last na breakout room. Ayan, from our group kasi, halos pareho lang din ng output or discussion ng breakout room number 3 or number 3. So sa amin, meron kasing parang factor. Aside sa teacher factor, syempre factor din si parents. Kasi parang tayo, we are teaching the students sa classroom. Definitely, meron silang natutunan. Pero the retention, paano ba natin natulungan? Or paano ba nagkaroon ng retention yung bata? Aside sa school, nagkaroon ba ng retention din sa bahay? Na parang, meron bang yung bata, nagkaroon din ba siya ng study time sa bahay nila? O baka paglabas niya ng classroom, or paglabas niya ng school, naglaro na lang siya. So parang lumipad na rin lahat na natutunan niya doon sa loob ng classroom. And then, common another problem na nakikita is the auxiliary task ng teachers. Kasi yun nga, si Sir, niya kanina, 7 hours siya magtuturo, ay 8 hours lang yung gano'ng karami ang load ng isang teacher. And for the teachers to have ng maraming load, paano pa siya magpe-prepare para sa mga lessons niya in the next few days? Na parang siguro yung mga seasoned teachers natin, mas madali na for them kasi pwedeng i-reuse yung ilang materials nila. Pero paano yung mga new teachers na bagong teacher, tapos yung mga lessons niya, she would be teaching different subjects and different levels. And the students also have different needs na parang sa isang classroom, hindi pare-pareho yung needs ng mga estudyante natin. Parang sa isang classroom, merong visual, pero yung isa, auditory, na merong isa, mas ano siya, mas physical yung ano niya, yung means ng learning niya. So, paano natin maibibigay as a teacher yung needs ng mga estudyante natin kung sobrang dami ng subjects and grade levels na tuturuan natin. Good thing lang with our group kasi we are from different governance levels. We have teachers ng elementary tsaka high school, and then we have education program supervisor, and we also have a school head. So nakita namin yung iba-ibang factors na kailangan din namin tignan. Also, another problem na nakikita rin ng teacher is, yun nga, yung auxiliary task. Doon sinasabi na walang class disruption, pero teachers are training the students na kasi uso ngayon ng district meet. So, yung si teacher nagtatrain ng mga estudyante niya for district meet. So, itong isang teacher, hindi na siya makapag-klase. Bibigyan na lang niya ng mga activities yung mga estudyante niya. So, parang ang learning, less na. And then, we also train the students, pero we prioritize the achievers, 'di ba? Parang 'di ba, parang panabibigay tayo ng mga pag nagsisend tayo ng mga estudyante. Kanina ba tayo nagpo-focus? We focus on the achievers. Minsan nalales yung yung time na binibigay din natin para doon sa mga hindi achievers. So baka kailangan din natin yung tignan as teachers. And then sabi nung isang ka-group namin is we have plans. Definitely, DepEd has plans. Pero minsan, ang nagiging problema natin is the conduct and the implementation of those plans. We plan forward, pero we forgot to plan to do the backwards plan. So yon. And then another pa po ay siguro sir, ano ko lang din na parang tinitignan natin yung gaano tayo o yung achievement natin with the teams or the international assessments. Pero how we try to check on the national assessment test na developed by the department. So baka kailangan din nating tignan kung ano kung ano na yung ano ba yung scores natin ng mga bata natin from the national achievement test na dinevelop ng department natin. Tingin ba natin parang malayo ba, mas mataas ba yung yung rating natin from the national achievement test that we have doon sa international achievement test na ini-aim natin, or baka naman mas mababa pa pala yung score natin from the national achievement test from the international achievement test. So yun lang po. Thank you.
Kaya ba, sir? There are two virtual hands raising.
Oh, okay. Okay, so last one. Well, let's hear from Sir Perry. Sir?
Just want to share kasi may nakita ko sa comment section na sabi niya the DepEd is hiring personnel to teach for the Regional Athletic Association, for other extracurricular that the DepEd is having for the whole year. I heard this from a division in Santa Rosa that they're hiring job order people, coaches to do the coaching side of to do the coaching side. Tapos nakakatuwa kasi dati nung nag-Regional Athletic Association kami sa Calabarzon, ang Santa Rosa, I'm not from Santa Rosa but I'm from Binyan. Nakakatuwa lang yung konsepto nila na ituloy pa rin ang sports pero tuloy pa rin ang pag-aaral. Yung ganong konsepto ng at tuloy pa rin ang benefits ng mga teachers sa local government. Kasi ang ginagawa nila, nag-hire sila ng job order. So number one factor pa, nag-hire ka, nag-open ka ng job para dun sa mga tao na sports lang ang kayang iambag sa education. I'm not underestimating them, but there are people who are very good with it. 'Di ba? So parang they hiring this job order people na para mag-coach, sa regional athletic. And blessing in disguise, from top 10 sa Calabarzon, they gained runner-up sa Antipolo. Which is Antipolo talaga, ang Rizal hindi talaga namin matibag yan eh. Pero na runner-up sila, I don't know kung number 2 or number 3, those teachers that we have here today, nagkakaroon, alam nila yan. So parang, why don't we hire those people, di ba? To those. And also, another thing is, paano yung academic? Sir, paano po yung academic? Question. Sir, paano po yung academic? Nakakatuwa na sa elementary, bakit sa elementary kayang i-include ang campus journalism sa grade 5? Kasi may nakita akong module na nakalagay ay how to write feature. 'Di ba? So parang mula dun sa pababa na grade 1 na tell me about yourself, pagdating ng grade 2 ay na-invest na tell me about your family. Tapos pagdating ng grade 3 is tell me about your community. And pagdating ng grade 5 is tell me about your story, so you can make the feature article of it, na itong mga batang ito na magagaling sa loob ng classroom about feature article is also na pwedeng ilaban. Hindi na natin kailangan mag-train na sobra, sabi nga ni VP ng PNU na bakit laging kumbaga nagigimbal. I don't know if that's the term. Parang nababother ang buong academics dahil pagdating ng DSPC, pagdating ng RAAM, pagdating ng ganitong Festival of Talents, why don't we include this at sabi nga ng ibang mga, to summarize everything, sabi nga ng mga ibang teachers na nag-share kanina na why don't we devise a curriculum na lifelong na pwedeng hindi tayo pasikatan ito. Ano ba ito? Showtime? Pasikatan ng curriculum kung sino pinaka-best. And nagiging ginipig ang mga estudyante. Kumbaga nagiging sila yung sige, bago na naman ang curriculum, bago na naman. Why don't we turn over these people and why don't we put people on the Department of Education na nanggaling sa loob, na naging in-house. Di ba tayo napopromote tayo from teacher 1, teacher 2, teacher 3? Why don't we need also na ang DepEd Secretary, di ba, from promotion dun sa mga naging SDS? Di ba? That's a merely suggestion lang po throughout the things that they're sharing a while ago. Eh kasi sa amin kasi parang we are already, ang Cavite magaling sa special program sa campus journalism, hanga ako dyan. Bakit ang SD, ang division na ito ay kaya? 'Di ba? Why don't we nationwide do it, 'di ba? If the budget is there, then 'di ba, sabi nga, if the budget is there, then use it properly. 'Di ba? Yun lang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insight. Now let's hear from Ma'am Mesalucha. Ma'am.
Hi, good evening to all. Share ko na lang din po yung best practice sa school namin. Before po mag-start yung school year, lahat po kaming mga teacher nagpe-present po ng action plan para po na i-align din ng school head namin yung mga kailangan na ma-implement sa school para ma-address din yung sa PISA, sa reading, comprehension, things like that po. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that. Now, and thank you also so much, scholars, for sharing your valuable insights. Now let's give the floor to Dr. Apolegdo for the final remarks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for your comments, and it's an interesting exercise. But again, to review in the Thomas Kuhn, and again, there's a lot of problems before when he started talking about the paradigms, but he tried to clarify it by saying there's two senses of it, and one sense is the puzzles and problems faced by, let's say, a discipline. So that's what defines a discipline. And the second one are the exemplars. And I hope you noticed that much of the discussion actually still revolved around the classroom paradigm And again, by itself, there's nothing necessarily wrong about it. It's just that, as some have already pointed out, there's a lot of limitations, of course, if you're going to say that the paradigm is just a classroom. That's why it's not surprising that during the pandemic, and we were talking about it in the other discussion room, kung kulang ng load, yung estudyante mo, ang magsosolve ay teacher. So nagbago lang yung nagbago lang ng content, naging virtual, pero si teacher pa yung magsosolve. The clue about and all of you, your answers are very much in the paradigm, and it's actually also a good sign. But again, if you're going to say we need the paradigm shift, I don't really see it coming insofar as your answers are all very nice, no, and it's good. It means that these are not really problems that maybe we shouldn't be worrying about. It's just that it is also telling that when people, it happens in the Philippines, when you say politics, it's already something which is negative. Of course, we could qualify it by saying, I guess it's our Philippine politics, which actually, unfortunately, informs our classroom paradigm. I did not see it come out, how it will be solved. Unfortunately, yung PISA at saka yung teams and meron talagang numerical solution for it. And unfortunately, if we don't break out of the paradigm, and Kun is very pessimistic about it, his examples in science, of course. In the case of Kuhn and science, what changed the paradigm was Albert Einstein came out with special theory of relativity and then later the general theory of relativity. If you notice, even in the comments, which I hope it makes you better, but it still revolves around the two paradigms. Na sir, kasi ito yung problems ng teacher, student engagement, learner-centered ba siya, student-centered ba siya, and then what else? So exemplar, wala kasi kami ang ganito. Yeah, that's true. Those are all real problems. It's just that the problem with that kind of paradigm, you look at Philippine education, it might be overlooking a lot of the larger problems. Like, it seems like it's a so obvious one. You still are lacking classrooms in general in the Philippines. Kaya kung paradigm mo ganun pa rin mangyayari 5 years from now. No? And it is telling, and it's actually already a clue when people say, kasi sir, politics yan eh. Well, we have to qualify kung sa definitions nga. Operationalize natin yan. Sir, politics saan? Politics sa Pilipinas. No. And now you have to ask yourself the important question, sir, what kind of politics we have here? And it's good that a lot of you are actually doing your jobs. No? But the thing is, we're all educators here in one way or the other. You have to ask yourself, tayo pwede natin pag-usapan na gano'n. What about the typical Filipino? How do they look at Philippine educators? And their paradigm is really still, if you remember, di ba, nung nag-online, the word, because we were doing community extension before, I had almost more than 500 DepEd teachers and admin and principals online. The word was hayahay yung teachers, no? There's no work supposedly, when in fact there's actually more work. Because that's still the paradigm. So while we can, di ba, sana kasi class ko mas engaged, and then we change the curriculum. But that's not the only thing, because that's how they will look. But other people who are not in education will look at you. Now, yun yung point ni Kun about science, no? Tama na nga, his example was Galileo. Tama nga si Galileo. We know that already. Unfortunately, I've never seen a student, even a science student, a graduate student, be able to answer one of my questions about that. But that's the next, for something else. Tama naman si Galileo. How come nahirapan matanggap? Kasi they didn't really have that paradigm shift. And in our case, sa conversation, you're all very nice. No? You're as fellow educators, this is good. But I never really saw, because there really is an answer for that. It need not be PISA. It's education in general. I didn't see it here. because we haven't had that paradigm shift yet. Pwede siyang pag-aralan, no? I'm actually tempted sometimes, no, because a friend of mine is the brother of, anyway. But yeah, that's why it's not gonna be solved, because it's still the same paradigm. Wherein often, it was just even a few months ago, some prominent person, in not so many words, sino ang may kasalanan sa Philippine education? Teachers. Nakasulat yon sa isang prominent media. I hope you didn't read it. In fact, nasisi na naman yung teacher. Maraming sinabi, no? Key to development. No. Pero bottom line, sino may kasalanan? Teachers daw. We have to admit, content knowledge really is a problem with the teachers. But it's not the whole of what? It's not the whole problem of Philippine education. Thank you, everyone. I hope he didn't feel so bad. Pero yun yung paradigm natin eh. So maybe, who knows, no? Some of you might be able to, someone put here, it takes a village. Yeah, that's right. But the clue to the solution to that one, you have to change. You have to change the village. It takes a village to raise the child. In our case, we have to change the village. Anyway, thank you, everyone.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Sir Dennis and Sir John. I'll give you before we conclude our meeting for today, for tonight. May I ask everyone to open up their camera so we can take a picture, group picture po.
Kaya babalikan ko ha. Bibili na ako.
Okay. Everyone. Okay. In a count of 3, we smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. One more time po. 1, 2, 3. Okay po, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, and another slide po. Next. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Last slide. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you po. Okay.
Thank you po, sir. Bye po.
Bye po. Thank you.
Bye po. Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Good
Thank you po.
night.
Maraming Good night salamat po. po.
Thank you. Good night po.
Thank you po. Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Bye-bye po.
Good night po.
Good night po.
Night
Good
po.
night, everyone.